So apparently the release notes for Tesla's next full self-driving beta update, 11.4.8, still another update where we're not getting version 12, have leaked online. And so I wanted to talk about these updates that are coming probably really soon, what we can expect, and if it's gonna fix any of our issues we currently have with our full self-driving cars. So first up, I just gotta say, I made a video complaining about some of the big problems a lot of people are having, hoping that it would do something. Maybe someone at Tesla would see it and be like, okay, we gotta fix these things. I have no idea. I imagine Tesla knows the bugs are there. I don't know why they're not fixing them. The response from you guys and a lot of people, which is fair, is that, hey, Tesla's working on version 12. They're going to fix it then. They're not worried about version 11. Well, we continue to get updates on version 11, and I can only hope that some of the glaring bugs, like the terrible windshield wipers that are going off all the time and then not going off when it starts raining, or the terrible lane changes, the lane drifting, the random turn signals, are going to be addressed with this update. Now, it doesn't seem any of the release notes we're going to talk about specifically address those things I'm talking about, but the release notes also didn't specifically address those bugs when they were introduced. And sometimes Tesla will fix this stuff without specifically mentioning it. So I'm very hopeful. You should check out that video where I talk about all this stuff, but I'm very hopeful that those bugs are going to be going away really soon. All right, so first up, Tesla has added the option to activate Autopilot with a single stalk depression instead of two to help simplify activation and disengagement. So this is huge for a couple of reasons, and I have some mixed feelings about it. So basically what this is gonna do is, instead of pushing down twice on the stalk to activate full self-driving or autopilot as we do today, you'll have an option in the software, which is great. I love having options. If I don't like it or I do, I can either use it or I don't have to use it. And if you select this option, you'll automatically turn on FSD with one press of the stalk instead of two. Now, the reasons that this is great: number one, the Model S and X refresh have had this since the beginning. It's been an option. The car actually comes by default with that selected, where you press the scroll wheel one time to activate full self-driving or autopilot, and you then can take over and disengage, and it turns off everything. So the main reason this is good: people sometimes get confused when they have autopilot or FSD engaged and they disengage with the steering wheel. It will leave your TAC, your traffic aware cruise control, on, so the car will continue to keep its speed, although you've taken over steering. And sometimes people get confused by that. It's happened to me as well. Well, if you have this option enabled, there is no cruise control. There's no traffic aware cruise control. You don't use it. So if autopilot is on, full self-driving is on, and you turn the steering wheel, it turns off all driver assist features. I think that this is overall a good thing, but I have conflicting feelings about it, because in our refresh Model X that we used to own, I actually turned off the single tap to activate FSD option, mostly because I didn't like the fact that when I would disable with the steering wheel, the car would quickly lose speed because of regen. So often when I was on the highway in that Model X, we didn't have FSD, we had basic autopilot, and with basic autopilot, you have to make your own lane changes. So I'd be in autopilot with the single click enabled. I'd turn on my turn signal, change lanes, and as soon as I took over steering, the whole car would begin to slow down unless I would push the accelerator. Now, I think over time you'd get used to this and you just have your foot on the accelerator ready for that to happen, but it's definitely a big adjustment for people that haven't done it before. It was a huge adjustment for me, and it led me to actually disabling this single click and never using it. But overall, when this comes to my car, I will be enabling it and trying to kind of force myself to get used to it, mostly due to the fact that I don't use cruise control ever. I never ever use it. I either use FSD or I'm driving manually. So the single click will be more convenient, and also totally disengaging, I think, will be overall more convenient. I'll have to use it and really find out. All right, so next up, introduced a new efficient video module to vehicle detection, semantics, velocity, and attribute networks that allowed for increased performance at lower latency. This was achieved by creating a multi-layered hierarchical video module that caches intermediate computations to dramatically reduce the amount of compute that happens at any particular time. So this release note makes it sound like Tesla is actually, in version 11, we're not even to version 12 yet, introducing brand new ways for the car to use its cameras to detect vehicles. And one of the big things that they say here, which maybe is not a big deal to the end user, but is huge overall in terms of the goal of full self-driving, is they're reducing the amount of power that's needed when using this method. Now, why is that huge? Your car is not plugged into the wall. The full self-driving computer only has a limited amount of power that it can use, and every gain in efficiency is huge, so that power can be used in other tasks where it's needed more. So this saving of power may lead to improvements in other areas that are not directly related to vehicle and other detection, but the car is gaining by getting this update. I also find it super interesting that the way FSD is detecting vehicles is changing in version 11 before we even get to version 12. I'm sure this is going to be there, it'll be carried over, but super interesting nonetheless. Next up, improved distance crossing object detections by an additional 6% and improved the precision of vehicle detection by refreshing old datasets with better auto labeling and introducing the new video module. So Tesla basically used better methods to detect these crossing objects, and related to the last note, they used the new video labeling system to improve this as well. Tesla has improved the precision of cut-in vehicle detection by 15% with additional data and the changes to the video architecture that improve performance and latency. So a lot of this is dedicated to detection and prediction of the vehicles around. Cut-in detection is huge. This is actually somewhere where you can experience a decent amount of phantom braking, where, phantom braking, the car has a reason that it's hitting the brake. So it's not the best term in my opinion, but basically the car's hitting the brake because it thinks it needs to, but it doesn't actually need to. So to us as the driver, we interpret that as a brake, a phantom brake that wasn't needed, even though the car thought it was needed. So this is something that can really improve on phantom braking. And we've seen notes like this before where Tesla is getting better at cut-in detection. And in my experience lately, phantom braking is extremely rare. Now it's not never there, it does happen, but compared to older versions, especially versions older than 10.69, phantom braking is extremely rare compared to back in the day. Tesla has reduced vehicle velocity error by 3% and reduced vehicle acceleration error by 10% by improving auto-labeled datasets, introducing the new video module, and aligning model training and inference more closely. So to me, initially, I kind of thought this was talking about detecting the speeds and velocities of the vehicles around it, but actually, I think it's talking about the car being aware and better at detecting its own speed. So the car would make fewer mistakes in estimating its own speed and how quickly it's speeding. So definitely reducing the vehicle acceleration error by 10% means the vehicle should accelerate either faster or slower, whatever is more appropriate 10% of the time. And then the first part, the reduced vehicle velocity error by 3%, that's where I was kind of thinking it was more talking about the vehicles around it. But I think this has to do with the car detecting its own speed, which I don't know, sounds kind of weird to me. I'm not exactly sure on this one, so I'm curious what you think. And again, this improvement is also brought by the new video module. Tesla has reduced the latency of the vehicle semantics network by 15% with the new video module architecture at no cost to performance. So this is related to the time it takes for the car system to understand and classify what's around it, like other cars and lanes and road signs. Now this is where we can get excited, and hopefully the car won't change lanes to the right when a left turn is coming up and vice versa, or drift into an upcoming opening lane or something like that. Maybe I'm just being, too hopeful, too wishful, but I really want these fixes. Tesla has also reduced the error of pedestrian and bicycle rotation by over 8% by leveraging object kinematics more extensively when jointly optimizing pedestrian and bicycle tracks in auto-labeled datasets. So of course, this just means the car's accuracy in predicting the movement of pedestrians and cyclists is better, and this is due to the computer now using more data about how these objects tend to move over time and considers this information when learning from examples, like the auto-labeled datasets. Again, in my experience, this has been very good for a while. This kind of stuff has been called out in the release notes many times before, getting better at detecting pedestrians. And there, I don't remember the version number, but there was a version where this was called out and it was a night and day difference from before. So when you see a number like an 8% improvement, it doesn't sound like much, but if Tesla has improved this 10%, and then they improved it 10%, and then they improved it 20%, and now they're on top of all those improvements, improving it another 8%, that actually is pretty significant. So I think we may see this a lot when you look at the visual, in that the pedestrian or cyclist on the screen is going to be more accurately facing the direction they are in real life, especially when they're moving. But again, I find when they're actually moving, the car is very good at predicting if they're facing this way or whatever. And it's more when they're not moving in that it kind of the object will rotate around. Now, as long as they're being detected, I don't think it's that important, but it's something that people notice and something to think about. All right, now this next one was surprising. We have our first call out of hardware 4 in release notes. Improved geometric accuracy of vision park assist predictions by 16% by leveraging more hardware 4 data, tripling resolution and increasing overall stability of measurements. So it's no secret, especially when compared to the ultrasonic sensors, that Tesla Vision is not that good. The park assist that just uses the cameras and doesn't use ultrasonic sensors, it will detect things and it will ding at you if something's there for the most part, but the accuracy is not very good. I made a full video about that I'll link up above that you can check out. It's not nearly as accurate as the ultrasonic sensors, so it's not all that useful when parking in tight spaces because sure, it says that, there's 20 inches left, but maybe there's actually 40 inches left or 30 inches left. I mean, it was really off by that much. So to see a 16% improvement here, the first thing I think is like, okay, that's great, but we really need like 100% improvement. But it's a first step. The cars will continue to get updated. And to see that in a single update, they can get 16% improvement, that is encouraging for me that this will become more and more useful over time. And then the last one, improved path blockage lane change accuracy by 10% due to updates to static object detection networks. So again, for me, for the most part, this one seems to work really well at lower speeds. In downtown scenarios, the car is excellent at detecting if a lane is blocked and it needs to change lanes to get out of it. Every once in a while, in a slower downtown scenario, it will display that message and change lanes when it doesn't really need to. Not that big of a deal. This should help with that. But where I really find this is not that accurate is on the highway, going higher speeds, which makes total sense. The car obviously doesn't have as much time to look down the road if you're going, 70 or 80 miles per hour versus 25. But I found, especially in construction zones, if there are cones near your lane but off to the left, the car will sometimes change lanes to avoid path blockage, even though the cones aren't actually in your lane. They're outside of it, but the car is being cautious. So it's never been a problem for me where it doesn't change lanes when there's a blockage, not that I've experienced, but this should make it more accurate in not changing lanes if there isn't a blockage. I will be driving this update as soon as it comes to my car, so hit like and get subscribed. I am curious what you think down in the comments. You will see me in the next video.